Hello and welcome to the Penalty Box Perspective podcast. My name is Nathaniel and joining us today is my good friend Matt. How are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm very good, mate. Yeah, how are you? All good?
I'm very, very good. This is very weird. This is our very first podcast recorded in video format. So you'll be able to see our ugly mugs while you listen to our annoying, grating voices. So yeah, how are you feeling about this?
Uh, yeah, it's been a long time coming. We've been working on this for a little while now. Looking at bringing the podcast to everyone in video format. However haunting that may be for for everyone watching. But yeah, no, I'm buzzing to be here. Looking forward to kind of next stage of the podcast, and yeah, let's see how we get on.
Yeah, absolutely. And with this in mind, we're actually going to be sort of express our spread on social media. So you'll see us now not only on X and Instagram, but also TikTok and all these other Gen Z, is it, type of apps? I don't know. Maybe we're on
You,
Snapchat as well. Who knows?
you just showed your age. We are not going on Snapchat. We are not 16. You, however, just aged yourself dramatically there. So yeah, cracking start there, Nathaniel. Yeah, we will be on we will be on TikTok at is it the PvP podcast?
No, is it the penalty box perspective?
Nice. Okay, well there we go. So yeah, we'll
Yeah.
be dropping some clips from the show on there, as well as a few other bits here and there, with even more of our incredibly mid faces. Um, but today, Nathaniel, we've got some post Olympic power rankings, but a little bit of news to touch on first.
Yes, absolutely. And for those of you listening for the first time, we are obviously an NHL based podcast. If you've caught our recent sort of 9 episodes, we sort of ran by game, day by day, the Olympics. But the way we set up this podcast is we generally drop 2 episodes per week. Our main episode recaps the whole week of the NHL, every team, every game. We touch on them generally about 2 or 3 minutes per team. Can be a lot longer, especially when they involve our teams. I bet you wonder who they're going to be. But yeah, and then we take a bit of a breather to deep dive some certain subject areas. An episode like today where we sort of go through our power rankings. It's a real mixed bag, but it's all around the NHL from the UK perspective. So if you want to know more about the sport and want to get into it or anything like that, or you just want to catch up with things, and be sure to tune in. But yes, we do have some news to cover. We have a trade and a contract. Um, I think we'll go contract first.
Yeah, it's certainly the older news. However, we were kind of trying to make sure during our Olympic coverage that we were staying right on track with everything with the Olympics. So we kind of stayed away from the NHL news that came through. But yeah, there was a new contract signed by, in my opinion, one of the best goalies in the NHL this season. And what a steal of a
Yeah,
contract it was as well.
absolutely nuts. So we've all been aboard the bussy wagon this year. It's sort of come out of nowhere. I mean, depending on who, well, depending on what you see in goaltenders, they're kind of up and down in terms of play. So as opposed to like maybe some like a winger or something, a star player can emerge at any time at the goaltender position. But nonetheless, this guy's come out of nowhere and he's had an absolutely storming season. And when you look at the Carolina Hurricanes and the fact that Freddie Anderson isn't doing that well this year, he's getting a bit older, they're potentially looking to the future. You think they want to tie this guy down for many, many years. And they kind of have done, but at a steal of a price.
Yeah, they've so Brandon Bussey has signed a 3-year, 1.9 million AAV contract, which yeah, I mean, I kind of got a couple of feelings on this, really. I mean, first and foremost, that dollar value is an absolute steal for someone who has played the way that he's played this season. I mean, he's made 27 starts. He's got 23 wins, 3 losses, and 1 loss in overtime. He's got a 908 save percentage and a 216 goals against average. So in terms of wins, he's currently third in the NHL, only behind Karel Vermelka and Andrei Vasilevsky. Now, Karel Vermelka's played 18 more starts than Brandon Bussey has this year,
I was going to
and
say that's a misleading stat.
yeah, and Vasilevsky's made 11 more starts. So his win percentage is absolutely, absolutely bonkers. He's got 2 shutouts with that as well. He's also got an assist. Um, but the only thinking that I can have with this is that it's been his breakout year. Obviously, he was a waiver claim by the Carolina Hurricanes from Boston, and this has been his breakout year. Now, goalies, like you said, can fluctuate so much. They can be shit hot one year and then hot shit the next. Um, but I think this is probably a bit more of kind of like a prove it sort of deal. 3 years, it's a nice cap friendly deal. They're going to keep him around. And if he continues to perform how he's performing, then he becomes a UFA at the age of, was it 31 that you said?
Yeah,
But
UFA
yeah,
31.
becomes a UFA at 31. And then if he wants to stay in Carolina, then I'm sure he will get a much larger AAV. Um, or if that, he might go and test the market somewhere else or ask for a trade somewhere else where he's maybe going to be, paid a bit more money. So, yeah, I think as in terms of Bussy, he more or less doubles his salary. Um, and for Carolina, they get a really really nice piece added to their lineup for not a lot of money. And even if he ends up being more of a backup, then you've still got a good backup on good money. I think it's kind of a win-win for everyone involved for now. I think I don't think that after one really good season you were going to see Bussy kind of cash out for like 6 million or anything like that. I think it's kind of a fair deal for everyone involved.
It depends on how you look at it for me. Like Bussy, like, the hot season, cold season, etc. But if you've got it in you, if you've proven that you've got that quality in you, there's a lot of goaltenders who never reach that level until they're hot and cold, but not at the level that Bussy's reaching at the minute. So then you got to sort of bet on yourself. He signed a very team-friendly deal. They could probably get rid of Anderson, get another backup, and roll with Bussy, for example. And it may or may not work for them, but it frees up a lot of cap for them to spend deep in the forwards and the decor, etc. And we've already seen how Carolina are sort of one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference right now. There's a lot more leverage for them in the next 3 years to really go for it. And if Bussy wanted that and to take less money, but with the chance of winning Stanley Cups, great. But never underestimate the horrendousness of some teams' franchise building qualities, and would very much likely see a goaltender off a hot year and go, you know what, 6 million, yeah, he's worth it. And then Bussy would play on a bad team, he'd probably perform poorly, and then we'll all be laughing stock at them again. When I'm sure we can name a few teams in this category that just make decisions like this constantly. So for him, I think it would have been a decision either to sign big elsewhere and probably not achieve anything with a team kind of thing, or play sort of the long game in Carolina, maybe win some cups, and if he plays so well, maybe there's huge marketing deals out there, especially with his name.
Yeah, I don't know what those marketing deals would be, but yeah, there's certainly a there's
Public
certainly
transport, what are you on about?
yeah, yeah, of course. Yeah. Signs a massive sponsorship with with Johnson's baby oil. Um, Fantastic.
Fantastic.
So we've had the contract extension for Bussy. We've also had a trade involving the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Colorado Avalanche. Seen Brett Kulak go from the Pittsburgh Penguins to Colorado in exchange for Sam Girard and a second round pick, going back to Pittsburgh. So, I mean, first and foremost, I had to give my buddy Jacob a shout. Massive Pittsburgh fan. I kind of said like, how do you feel about this? Because on the face value, I can't really see what Colorado are doing with this. Um, I mean, Sam Girard's a real nice offensive defenseman. He's probably been a bit kind of not buried, but obviously when they've got Makar and they've got Taves, it's always going to be difficult for him to be like a standout player in that lineup. Um, and he said that Brett Kulak's been Pittsburgh's probably their best defenseman this year. So it was a shame to see him go, but I mean, you're getting someone back who's a more than serviceable player. Certainly, if Pittsburgh are gonna make a drive for the playoffs, he's someone who's got playoff experience. He's won a cup. He's been a winner in the past, and then you also get that second round pick, and we're seeing from Kyle Dubas. We're seeing him kind of amass a really nice amount of draft capital for Pittsburgh moving forward at the same time as them staying kind of competitive enough this season where it certainly looks as though they're kind of destined for a playoff spot.
Yeah. I will say on the first view of this trade, I thought, what the bloody hell are Colorado doing? You're in a historical year with a set roster. You don't really need to trade for any new players. You got a decent squad as it is, but you're also looking at what they're going to do in the future and the turnover, healthy turnover of players. This is where the second round pick comes in. So on the face of it, I thought maybe two defenders. I would have put Gerard as better than Kulak generally, but if not, they're kind of 50-50. But then you're just sort of giving away a second round pick. So now it's like, right, well, what contracts are they on at the minute? And Sam Gerard's on $5 million a year. Um, I think he's got another year on his contract, and Kulak is on 2 point something, and is a UFA at the end of this year. So maybe it's sort of cap move, and they're paying the Penguins to take on some more cap. But honestly, I don't really understand it. Like, I don't know what either team are necessarily getting, other than maybe the Penguins amassing more and more draft picks to replace the Crosbys and the Malkins and eventually the Tangs and all that stuff. So for me, it's just a really funny bit of business.
Yeah, and it does mean now that, like I say, it strikes me more as a cap flexibility move for Colorado. It shifts about 2.5, close to 3 million in their cap, and they've obviously had to give up a second round pick in order to do that. I think to me this points more towards Colorado making a move offensively. Now, in particular, Colorado, as it stands, have $8.7 million in cap space. Now, obviously, this has been a big talking point throughout the majority of the season about there's a certain player who makes 8.7 million in the NHL at the moment. Sidney Crosby makes
No, it's
8.7
not going to
million.
happen.
I don't think it will. No, I think that's I think that's incredibly unlikely. I think maybe if Pittsburgh was sat around the bottom of the standings this year, then maybe it might have been something he would have entertained. But I think with Pittsburgh being where they are, in contention for a playoff spot, I don't think Crosby's got any desire or kind of wanting to leave there. He's an icon there. He pretty much has the keys to the city of Pittsburgh at this point. So maybe not Sidney Crosby, but we've certainly seen some of these kind of rental forwards being being kind of named around, your likes of Ryan O'Reilly or Nazem Kadri, Rob Thomas, not rental forwards per se, but
Trocheck.
yeah, Vincent Trocheck, someone who could find themselves being dealt to Colorado now that they have a bit more kind of cap room to play with. So yeah, I'm unsure on what it means for the Avalanche moving forward, but I think giving up a second round pick is it's a lot. But if it ends with them winning a Stanley Cup, they will not give a shit. It's all about just trying to maximize the assets you do have to try and put yourself in the best position to win a cup, which is why we play the game. So yeah, we'll see what they're able to pull together. I have no doubt that they're I don't think they're done by any stretch of the imagination. But yeah, Sam Gerard, 27 years old. Um, good little piece, I think, for Pittsburgh, and will sit quite nicely in there, I think.
Yeah, I think Penguins have easily won this trade for me. If you're Colorado and you're smashing everyone, why are you changing things unnecessarily unless you're getting maybe a different playmaker? But Kulak is not going to be that big a game changer. You're changing your sort of your fourth defender potentially, that kind of stuff. I don't understand it.
Yeah.
But I'm not an NHL GM or owner or executive, and what the fuck do I know? But from the outside, but from the penalty box perspective, I don't know. I don't know.
No, it's yeah. Anyway, shall we dive into it? You know, we're at the 15-minute mark. Shall we jump into some power rankings?
Yes, absolutely. Now these power rankings, I mean, if you don't know what power rankings are, we're essentially going to place in order every single team based on our potentially biased, potentially idiotic proof views. Um, Essentially, me and Matt both submit our own lists and then we combine them. And there are some interesting discussion points. We'll start at the bottom, I think. Or do you want to start at the
Ooh.
top?
Um. Well, I think we could start at the we could start at the top because we actually have our first 7 picks are all corresponding. Um.
Yeah.
So we'll move our way through the top. We'll start kind of with the top three, I think, and then sort of move into the next four afterwards because you know there are certainly identical picks from ourselves.
Yeah. We are locked in. But first overall pick, I mean, it's fairly obvious, really, for us. I think Colorado Avalanche absolutely smashing it. Tampa Bay Lightning in second. I say Carolina's probably the best team in the Eastern Conference. I obviously forgot about Tampa Bay, but they are obviously smashing it. And then obviously Dallas Stars in third. Um, Potentially discussion point there, but yeah, what do you think about those top three picks?
Uh, yeah, I mean, you know, Colorado kind of they did drop a couple of games in the lead up to the Olympic break, but I think now they've had a little bit of rest and recuperation. Obviously, they've made the trade for Kulak. There's gonna be um in that Colorado team, there's going to be a number of pissed off Canadians who are arriving back from the Olympics who are going to have a chip on their shoulder and they are just not going to be in the mood to play around. You know, McKinnon, Taves, McCarr, I mean, especially thinking that gold medal game, both McKinnon and Taves had massive opportunities to score in that game and weren't able to do so. So that's going to be hanging over them. And I think with the kind of players that they are, it's more likely to galvanize them to just go absolute, you know, unlock another level. And I could see Colorado going out there and absolutely punishing some teams down the stretch here. Um, Tampa, yeah, pretty self-explanatory for me. I think they are the best team in the East. I think they've had a remarkable season, factoring in with all the injuries they've had. I think John Cooper's been nothing short of incredible, and for me, is an absolute shoe-in for the Jack Adams Award at the end of the season. And then Dallas. I mean, for me, I think I think Dallas just they kind of stumbled their way to the Olympic break, sort of similarly to Colorado. They dropped a couple of unnecessary games, and I think that you know they'll definitely be wanting to get that second spot ahead of Minnesota, who we'll come to. But yeah, I do think for me they are kind of the third best team in the NHL right now, and kind of fully deserving of that third spot for me anyway.
And we'll touch on that with the Wild because obviously, if you don't know, the Wild are my team. But Dallas and Minnesota have been neck and neck throughout the year. Like every time they drop a game, the other team drops a game. It's been really fascinating to watch how they're mirroring each other. But I think for both of us, we both see the rosters, we both see the pedigree, and we see maybe Minnesota kind of more on the up, whereas Dallas are already there. They've already got
Mm.
the chops to prove how good they are. So that's kind of why, for me, they are above Minnesota in the minute. Um, but I still want to stick in to say that Minnesota are doing just as well as them.
Yeah, I don't think, and we're splitting hairs really between third and fifth, as we'll move into with the next four. So we had all well from 4 to 7 locked in the same as well. We had the Carolina Hurricanes at fourth, the Minnesota Wild at fifth, the Vegas Golden Knights at sixth, and the Edmonton Oilers at number seven. Um, I mean, I don't have kind of any complaints certainly with Carolina there. Obviously, we're both of the impression that they're kind of deserving to be there. Um, and then you come to Minnesota. Now, like you said with Minnesota, I think they're very much rising up. I think Dallas were already there. I think how Minnesota's season ultimately ends up kind of hinges on what they do around the trade deadline, along with, sorry, like just keeping their players fit. They're going to have to, they're really going to have to try and keep people away from the treatment room. Obviously, I know that's kind of easier said than done at times. But
Oh, I,
yeah, give me some Minnesota, Nathaniel.
yeah. Um, so obviously the big news, obviously Quinn Hughes joins, massive trade. We trade away a lot of our prospects, um, but he's absolutely killed it. Absolutely nailed it, and I hope we can sign him long term. Kaprizov's fit and healthy, firing. Baldy, his Olympic gold medalist, scoring absolutely insane goal in the final. You've got depth across the roster, and I think the missing piece for Minnesota as to why they're not more established like Dallas is like a top first line centre. We've got Eriksson Ek, who is very, very, very good. Don't get me wrong, but everyone sees his weakness on this team is the first line centre spots. We've got two amazing goaltenders, and the whole talk about Minnesota moving in the next couple of weeks is that we're going to trade Jesper Wallstedt for a centre of some sort. But for me, I think the Wild are still we're a bit pessimistic. We're just waiting for the wheels to fall off at some point, which is why, in terms of power, I mean they're fifth, so we're not saying they're a bad team. I'm not saying they're a bad team, but in perspective against Dallas, who are more established, Carolina, who are probably a bit further down from Tampa Bay and stuff, just because they don't seem to have that explosive star power for me. They're a very well built roster, great coach, going to go far, but they don't have that sort of star power. So they're above Minnesota, and then we hit Minnesota.
Hmm.
So four teams ahead of Minnesota, and that's where I'm at personally. I'm just kind of waiting for the wheels falling off. Hope they don't. We
Nah,
seem to be making the right decisions.
nah. I think they'll be all good. I think they will trade for a centre. I don't know who that centre's going to be. We've already mentioned some names. Do you have a preference of someone you'd like to see arrive through the door at Minnesota?
The only one I would like to see, I'm not bothered for Nazim Kadri, not bothered for really Robert Thomas, not really bothered for Vincent Trocheck. Ryan O'Reilly is the only one that kind of piques my interest. I think he's a very underrated centre. I think he's going to be expensive, and I think he's already come out and said that he's happy to stay in Nashville. So I don't know. That's what scares me. I think we should make a trade because two goaltenders doesn't matter in the playoffs because you really just roll with the you won, unless injuries, for example. But you need a more forward depth in that in the playoffs there. So I do think we need to make a trade, but is the right one out there? I don't want us to desperately move for one and make a mistake really.
Yeah, and I don't know, that's quite interesting to me that you're kind of not on board with Rob Thomas. I think he's a very, very good player playing on a hot garbage team. 26 years old. Um, he's signed through to the 30-31 season, 8.1 million. I think it's certainly a doable deal for them. And I think you would be. I think because he plays in St. Louis, who are just shite. I don't think we see as much kind of coverage of Rob Thomas as we would, as maybe we would expect. But I think he's a much better player, I think, than he maybe gets kind of credited for. And I think Minnesota would be, pleasantly surprised. The only thing I would say is that any sort of trade for Rob Thomas is going to be is going to be difficult to do, just because he won't be cheap. And you mentioned about trading Jesper Wallstedt. I know we've had this conversation off air about, I don't know if you trade Jesper Wallstedt to the Blues because obviously they've got Jordan Binnington, who they love. I don't know if that maybe means Jordan Binnington goes elsewhere, or I think what I think is probably a more likely situation is that Wallstedt gets traded for picks to a team who is needing a goaltender, and then those picks get flipped almost immediately to St. Louis, for Rob Thomas. So yeah, we'll see. It's certainly a name that's been
Yeah.
put out there.
It,
33 points
it's a
in
bit
42
Ericsson-icky, though.
games. Yeah, a little bit. But in the last 3 seasons, I mean, he got 81 points in 70 games last season, 86 points in 82 games the previous season. Um, you know, 77 points in 72 games in 21-22 and 65 in 73 and 22-23. Now, there is a little bit of a theme here that he has as it stands since his debut season in the 18-19 season. He has only completed one full 82 game season. He hasn't been permanently, massively injured, but he does tend to miss around sort of 8 to 9 games a season, which I suppose you can kind of live with. But yeah, just a little kind of interesting tidbit there.
Yeah.
But
Sign Marco Rossi back from Vancouver. That's what I say.
So we've then got the Vegas Golden Knights and the Edmonton Oilers. Now, I think we both kind of put Vegas reluctantly in sixth. Neither of us are massive kind of Vegas Golden Knights fans at all. I think they're just a bit of a shady organisation. But they do lead their division somehow. Um, I mean, yeah, they probably are kind of ranked sixth. Obviously, they made the trade for Rasmus Anderson. Um, I, you wouldn't rule them out of being in the market for someone else. Certainly maybe like another forward or maybe a goaltender or something like that. Just because they always seem to be involved in every single deal going. So they need to. Yeah, they'll figure it out.
Yeah. They are. I mean, with Vegas and Edmonton, they're in probably the weakest division of the year. The bottom two teams in our power ranking spoilers, um, from this division, and they got nowhere near as many points as other division leaders. So for me, that they're the best of that division. They are sort of good, well built teams, but they're not as good as the top five teams.
Yeah, and I think the same kind of goes for the Edmonton Oilers. I think that you see them in seventh. I don't have any issues with them being in seventh. I think there's probably around 6 teams better than them at the moment. We know what they
Yeah,
can do offensively, but they do have kind of defensive issues. Obviously, Tristan Jarry hasn't been it since he's arrived in Edmonton, so that could pose its own problems. But equally. You can't ever rule them out when they've got McDavid and Draisaitl there.
exactly. Star power will get you places. Was it always the bridesmaid and never the bride, though? I think that was a right. And this is where we move on to our first sort of big discussion point. We've agreed so far, but in eighth and ninth, we both had the Canadians and the Red Wings, but in different orders. So we've got to decide who we're going to place where. I don't know whether you want to make your case for the Red Wings first, or I should make my case for the Canadians first.
um, I mean, I know I've got the Red Wings over the Canadians. I'm never really one to fight the Red Wings corner. Just being a Blackhawks fan, so I'm kind of more than happy to concede on this one. But I just think that the Detroit have had a way better season than expected. I think they've overachieved massively, and I think they're very much a team that is greater than the sum of its parts. However, Montreal have been one of the most entertaining teams for me all season, and I think that you know their offensive play especially is just exhilarating, and they can go toe to toe with anyone in the league in an offensive manner. Obviously some defensive struggles there, but I'm more than happy to concede the Canadians to you on this occasion.
Thank you. You summed it up correctly. The Canadians are fun to watch. The Red Wings aren't so much. And I did say at the start that these rankings may be influenced by bias. Um,
They're our power rankings. We'll do what we want.
yeah, exactly. I mean, the Red Wings have had I think both these teams have had a big turnaround year. I just think Canadians are younger, fresher. I'd also trust them more in big games to pull it out the bag. The Red Wings are kind of, again, another, I don't know whether it's history or recent history that have come to sort of bite them, where I just think they'll come back down at some point.
Mm.
But moving to 10th position, so Canadians at 8, Red Wings at 9, at 10, there's the New York Islanders, who again have had a sort of a bounce back season. I don't know if we need to sort of deep dive them right now. I think that's pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. They're another team exceeding their expectations. They've been spearheaded by Matthew Schaefer, who's been an absolute sensation for them. But yeah, I think they are a team bound for the playoffs. And right now, I think are right up there.
Yeah, they stuttered a little bit before the break, but I think that I think they're playoff bound. In all honesty,
Mm.
we then come up with another decision we have to make, and I don't know whether it sort of tickles my brain when it's both the black and yellow teams up against each other. The Boston Bruins against the Pittsburgh Penguins. Who's going to come in at 11? Who's going to come in at 12? I had the Penguins at 10 and the Bruins at 12. And you had the Bruins at 11 and the Penguins at 13. So, what we're going to do here?
I just think that Boston, obviously they started pretty poorly, but I just think they've got better depth. I think than Pittsburgh do. I think Pittsburgh have been really reliant on a 38-year-old Sidney Crosby to kind of drag them through a lot this season. They have had some bright sparks from the younger ones. Ben Kindle's been really impressive for me this season, but I just think, especially that you see Sidney Crosby's been placed on injured reserve, probably for around the next 4 weeks.
Mm,
I just think that was what tilted it for the Bruins, in my opinion. I just think that the Penguins are going to struggle a bit without him.
yeah, I mean, Malkin's been in and out of the lineup. Crosby's now injured. They have signed Gerard, and they probably won the trade with Edmonton for Skinner as well. Skinner's been okay for the most part for the Penguins, but I think I'm probably going to be in line with you. Sorry, Jacob, but if both of these teams get to the playoffs, I do think Boston are probably going to edge it. I
Mm.
think at this moment, McAvoy, even with his broken jaw and the journey he's had this year, I think he's another star player who's playing his best hockey as well.
Yeah, McAvoy, Pasternak, Swayman, Geeky. I just think they've got a bit
Geeky
more
for
down the.
Richard, geeky for Richard, geeky for Richard.
That is,
Sorry,
I think that's dead in the water now. I don't think. I don't think Connor Geeky's taken that home with him, unfortunately. But it was a valiant effort nonetheless.
yeah, I still chant it because it's fun to say. Um, right, in the unlucky 13 spots, Utah Mammoth, I think they are almost the definition of mid for the most part. They've set deep in the fourth spot in the Central, and I think they're really good on their day, could beat anyone, but also are capable of having a really bad day as well. So I think they're a good spot in 13.
Yeah, I think they're about a year away. I think from I think a lot of their guys just need one more year. I think to really dig their heels in this league, and I'm interested to see what they do next year. But I think right now, I think they're the perennial kind of fourth team in the Central, and yeah, I think for me that's where they sit. Possible wildcard team.
Okay. And then In 14th spot, we got the Washington Capitals. Oh, I had them at 13, you had them at 14. But they fall to 14. Again, I think they've had a bit of an underwhelming season. We know that they've got the quality. They just haven't put it all together this year like they had last year. But I still think they're a quality team. Money's still on them to make the playoffs in one way or the other.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think they're a bit that we kind of come to this middle section with a lot of streaky teams. I think Washington have been exactly that, but they have kind of started to find elements of consistency and play a little bit better. Um, yeah, I think again they could be an outside shot for the playoffs.
And then in 15th spot, we have the Anaheim Ducks. One of, I think, of our pet teams as well. Another sort of young
Hmm.
roster. Um, but they are just horrifically defensively, and I think they're just a bit too fragile this year. They need another year or two. We've sort of put them in line with the Canadians in terms of where they're at, kind of stuff. But the Canadians are just more well put together.
Yeah, I think they're probably about a year behind where the Canadians are at the moment. Like you said, defensively, they're quite a tough watch. Exciting going forward, and I think in a goaltender stint as well. I think Lucas Dostal managed to pull it all together a bit before the Olympic break. Had a decent Olympic break, but yeah, I just think that they have too many deficiencies in the lineup. I think to be a shoe in for the playoffs, but they might well sneak their way in there. But either by a third spot in their conference or maybe by a wild card position.
Then below the Ducks in 16, we have the Los Angeles Kings. I mean, their big thing has been dominated by the fact they traded for Artemi Panarin, and then they lost Kevin Fiala in the Olympics to a horrific broken leg. So again, I had a little bet on them at the start of the year that they'd get into the playoffs and the Blues wouldn't, kind of thing, or whoever won a matchup between them. So there or thereabouts. They're probably going to be fighting the Ducks for maybe a wild card or the last spot, really.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Um, yeah, I mean, I probably would have had them higher had it not been for the loss of Kevin Fiala. Injury wise, he's not dead. Um, but
He's
yeah,
just lost. He's got himself lost in a supermarket or something.
yeah, yeah, it just kind of took the wind out the sails for me. I think with with the Panarin trade, it is then to immediately lose Fiala afterwards.
Mm.
I do think obviously we've seen Jeff Skinner's contract get terminated mutually by the San Jose Sharks this week. I really think that he'll probably end up in LA. I think as a buffer, as a replacement for Kevin Fiala down the stretch.
And then, sorry to say, in 17th spot we have the Buffalo Sabres, who went on a massive tear before the Olympics. Let's see how they do after the break, if they can keep it going. Um, I still don't trust this team. I don't think you do either.
No, they went on such an unbelievable winning streak, but equally, you know, history has shown us that the wheels will come off and they'll fall apart when it matters most. So I'm happy to be proven wrong, but yeah, I think it's going to be a struggle for them.
Yeah. So we got three teams tied for 18, 19, and 20. We got the Philadelphia Flyers, the San Jose Sharks, and the Seattle Kraken. Now, what's weird about this one is the Seattle Kraken I had in 15th and you had down in 23rd. The Sharks we both had joint at 19, and the Flyers you had at 17 and I had at 21. But they all average out at 19. We got a team that's wide apart, a team that's a little bit closer to each other, and a team that we think are sort of identical in the power rankings. So quite an interesting conversation.
Yeah, for me, I think of those three teams, I think the Sharks are the most electric team of them all. I think they're the team capable of winning a single one-off game in a pinch. I think because they've just got the elite forward talent of Macklin Celebrini, who's going to be coming. Um, he's going to be going even more. I mean, he was an absolute beast at the Olympics.
Yeah.
So I would have the Sharks over those. I think I would then have the Flyers in afterwards. Because again, I think they kind of do what the Sharks do, but nowhere near as well. And then the Seattle Kraken, I think afterwards, I mean, I maybe harshly rank them a little bit just because I find them incredibly boring. They're a team crying out for an elite forward talent. Yeah, that's kind of where I would have them. But I'm happy for you to debate it the other way.
Yeah, I mean, I do think the Kraken are a better rounded team than the other two. They're boring. I don't find them entertaining to watch at all, but I kind of trust them more to pull out a performance to win games. The Flyers, I mean, they're still recovering from the Tortorella effect. They've been doing all right, but they're not flashy. They kind of, I just don't think they quite have the skill. I don't quite know. And the Matvei Mishkov drama, it fucking infuriates me. And we touched on that before the Olympic break. It really stresses me out, and it just really makes me not like them. The San Jose Sharks are, I just think, a comedically almost like bad team, but due to a really great player, are getting
Yeah,
dragged forward.
yeah,
But I like them,
yeah.
so it's a really tricky thing.
And they have one thing that the other two teams don't have, and that is an absolutely elite talent, which the other teams just don't have. But like you said, I mean, take Celebrini off of that Sharks team, and they would be a comedically horrific team. So yeah, I would completely agree with you there.
Yeah, I mean, for me, Matt, I still think maybe I would potentially go Kraken, Sharks, Flyers. But if we wanted to swap the Sharks with the Kraken, I'd kind of be okay with that. I don't know how that settles in your mind. The Flyers, I just think that one, they're doing my head in, and two, they're not a good team. At least Sharks are, and the Kraken are able to pull out results. That's for me anyway.
Yeah, yeah, I can settle on that. I can settle on that. I think I've probably harshly ranked the Kraken in this situation. I think just because I find them really boring, but I think upon reflection they are a slightly better team. So
And we're back. Who'd have thought it? Blink of an eye. Kind of had our own Evan Bouchard moment there. Sudden had sudden lapse of concentration. We're back in the recording studio. Yeah, we had to take a bit of a unplanned break from our first recording session, but we're back here now to cover the last of the teams. So we just talked about the Sharks, Kraken, and Flyers, didn't we, Matt?
yes, yeah, we did.
Yeah. So moving on then into the 21st team in our power rankings, it's the Toronto Maple Leafs. You had them at 21. I had them at 20. So we're pretty much even with this team.
Yeah, not too much disparity between the two, and I really just don't know with this Toronto team. They're just underwhelming. And I'm starting to see a lot of kind of resignation from Toronto fans on the season that maybe they're not going to make the playoffs, that they're slipping away. Unfortunately, the star players just haven't performed as well as we would have expected. They've missed Mitch Marner, and they've had a lot of issues with goaltending this year. Now, it's not all their fault. Obviously, Wall had his personal leave of absence, which is fine, and I know Stolars has been in and out with injury and everything. So it's just not been. They haven't been able to have a consistent setup in goal, which has just kind of made things quite difficult for them in that regard. So yeah, I mean, we're talking about 20 and 21 here, so I think they sit about right.
Yeah. It's a hugely disappointing season for them, and it's only got worse with how their players performed at the Olympics. Austin Matthews winning as the American captain. Mitch
Yeah.
Marner still being clutch for Canada, which people said he never was clutch for Toronto. So it's just a bad season for them. Yeah. Um, we'll move on then into our 22nd team, the Columbus Blue Jackets. You had them at 20, I had them at 23. I just think that they moved up from our last power rankings. Obviously, the new coach bump. Is it for real or not to be determined, I think?
Yeah, look, I had them where I had them at 20th and rising. They won their last 7 games prior to the Olympic break. You know, we said all season that this team was better than what they were playing. Potentially, I suppose it's trying to determine whether it's a new coach bump or whether it's actually the team performing how they should be. But yes, I had them. Yeah, one over the Leafs. Yeah, for that kind of reason alone, I think there's more to be excited about as a Jackets fan as we reach the end point of the season, certainly than there is in Toronto. I think they're both kind of moving on opposite sides of the scale, one going up, one going down.
Yeah, I mean, the Blue Jackets still have a decent chance of making the playoffs, and not like the Maple Leafs. Still may make the playoffs, but it's a lot more difficult a challenge for them. So
Mm.
that's saying something. Um, but we'll move on into our 23rd team. I mean, we both had them at 22, but because of other teams, etc., they dropped down a spot. But it's the Florida Panthers.
Yeah, the Florida Panthers. We've discussed them at length this season, haven't we? About the possibility we were saying at the start of the season, what were the chances going to be of that three-peat, etc. Obviously, that's not going to happen this year. I still would be pressed to say I think they're probably out of a playoff spot now. Never say never, but and maybe the US Gold win kind of rejuvenates Matthew Tkachuk and gives him sort of a massive kind of push later into the season. But I just think they've left themselves with too much to do. But as we've said all season, for this Florida team, that's absolutely fine. Take the year off to come back rejuvenated, get ready to go, and yeah, just try and go again next year and try and get yourselves back in the playoffs and making a deep push.
Yeah, and fuck shit up.
Yeah,
Um,
in classic Florida fashion.
in classic Florida fashion. Bit of a drop off now for me in terms of quality, and I don't know whether that's kind of bold of me to say, but the 24th spot's the New Jersey Devils. Um,
Mm.
yeah, I think that they've had a poor year. You had them at 24, I had them at 25.
Yeah, they're it's it's going to be really interesting off of the back of the Olympics to see how a lot of these teams rebound and respond. Not necessarily as a whole team, but I'm thinking more certain individual players. And obviously, Jack Hughes taking the overtime winning goal to bring that gold medal to the US, potentially going back to New Jersey with sky high levels of confidence, and he is a leader on that team, and he might be able to be in a position to drag them through the rest of the year. Similarly to Florida, though, I think they've just left themselves with too much to do. At this point, I think they've fallen a bit too far back, and left it kind of all to do at this point in the season. So I'm not particularly optimistic about their playoff hopes. But equally, in the same vein, I could see them going on a massive winning streak towards the end of the year and kind of being that form team that pushes a wild card spot in like the last 2 games. So, that we've still got a fair amount of games to go. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, it's been a struggle. Obviously, that middle part of the season was just a complete write off for them.
Yeah, every game now is a game 7 for them, really. And if they start to lose a couple of games, it's going to be a slippery, slippery slope for them. Right, I've been waiting for this conversation. Because how in God's green earth have we managed to get 4 teams all sort of tied in our power rankings?
I think this is a first.
It is a first. It's a 4 in 4. Um, Bear with me as I explain what we've got here. We've got 4 teams: the Predators, the Blackhawks, the Senators, and the Winnipeg Jets. Now, the Predators, I had at 27, and you had at 26. The
Mm.
Blackhawks you had at 25, and I had at 28.
Hmm.
The Senators you had at 29, and I had them at 24. And then the Jets, I had them at 26, and you had them at 27. Can you remember all of their numbers? Nope.
No. um, right. I'm going to, in terms of positioning here, I am going to concede that I've maybe overhyped the Blackhawks. They are my team, so I've maybe gone a little bit overzealous there. Maybe in terms of putting them above the Predators, the Blues, etc. Um, I think certainly the future's incredibly bright for this team, but I think they are slipping away. They are expected to sell at the deadline. So in terms of this 25 through 28 slot, I would be happy to have them at 27, but I am not having them below the Jets.
Below the Jets.
The
Is
Jets
that
are
the hill you're going to die on?
the Jets are absolute buns.
Wow.
Ab-
Even with Connor Hellebuck after the Olympics he's had, you got Kyle Connor.
mm.
No.
And who else? Who else? They've had one line. They've had one line all season.
Chicago barely had a line most of the season. No. Look, I'll
Stop
concede that.
stop making valid points. It makes it harder for me to die on my own hills.
No, look, mate, I'll concede to that because there's been a difference in here, and we like up and coming teams.
Yeah.
The Jets have, have been at the top for quite a while, and they've had a really, really poor season. Whereas the Blackhawks have made a lot more progress than what we imagined them to have made. So for me, in terms of a feel-good story, absolutely have the Blackhawks over the Jets.
Mm.
Um, that then leaves the discussion as what about the Predators and the Senators? Now, you had the Senators really low down. So just want
Yeah.
to know what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah. I think that again. That could have been maybe some early ranking kind of bias. I think I just had the Senators in my head, had them, you know, they struggled in the run up to the Olympic break. Um, I think they're another team, obviously with another Kachuk, that I think are going to be somewhat rejuvenated over Nashville. Um, Obviously, Nashville are kind of in a really weird spot at the moment where they want to keep thinking that they're hanging in there, but they're not really. They're not really that close. But the Senators arguably could be. So yeah, well, I would be more than happy to concede the order as being Senators, Predators, Hawks, Jets.
I think I'm in line with you on that.
Yeah, yeah. I know you had the
Yeah.
Senators a lot higher than I did. Yeah, it's a retrospective fumble on my end, and now
Let me.
I'm gonna make whilst you update our illustrious spreadsheet, I'm gonna make a very quick suggestion. Um, we've got a talking point for 29 and 30, but I say we just coat off 31 and 32 real quick because it's very straightforward. Um,
Yes.
31, the Calgary Flames, 32, the Vancouver Canucks. These teams both absolutely suck. I think Vancouver are the worst franchise in the NHL at the moment. The Flames, still naff, but at least you can see some green shoots of what might be. Um, Albeit I still think they're years away from being remotely in any sort of contention window or anything remotely competitive. They're selling off a lot of guys. I know certainly around the trade deadline, there's also Coleman's name keeps coming up, Kadri's name keeps coming up. I've seen Sharon Govich's name in the rumor mill as well. Um, they basically have Dustin Wolf, Zane Parek, and Matt Coronato to look forward to in the future, and right now that's about it. So I
Yeah.
think the Flames are kind of right where they are right now. I think 12 months down the line, I think they could maybe inch their way up a little bit. Vancouver, though, are just a complete disaster.
Yeah.
Why won't you die?
That's what I think to those two teams.
Yeah,
No, the Canucks are just they're atrocious, and the Flames are the only team in the NHL not to have an Olympic medalist on their roster. So it's it's just pretty tough going for them two teams. I think that little drop there
yeah,
summed up exactly. And
and
if I'm
that
honest, I still think they're more interesting than the next two teams.
I would say so. So we come to like two of the NHL's biggest sellers around the trade deadline. Our final point of conversation between 29 and 30, we've got the St. Louis Blues and the New York Rangers. Now, I know that the Rangers are a team that have just caused you nothing but frustration all season. You had the
Yeah,
Rangers in 29th and the Blues in 31st. I had the Blues at 28 and the Rangers at 30. So, in a rare act of solidarity towards the team who I probably despise the most in the NHL, I have actually ranked the Blues over the Rangers here. However, where do we want them to sit? Because but let's not beat around the bush here. These two teams suck ass. Um,
yeah.
and they are both going to be stripped bare this upcoming trade deadline. I've seen again Jordan Binnington's name being chucked around, Rob Thomas's name being chucked around. I know we've already discussed the kind of Rob Thomas aspect with the likes of Minnesota or wherever he's going. Sounds like more or less everyone on the Rangers roster is kind of for sale, with exception to like Adam Fox, Igor
They're
Shesterkin.
rebuilding that. They're not
Yeah,
rebuilding.
yeah,
They're retooling.
bollocks, absolute
They got rid of
bollocks.
Panarin.
Yeah,
They, it's they wind me up so much. Like
mm,
if, I could even argue if, these four teams are just woeful at the bottom of
yeah,
this league.
yeah.
There's
Set them
a
all
big
on
gap.
fire and fire them into the sun.
I can't decide. I keep thinking, right, what team do I think is worse? And then I look at the Rangers. I'm like, oh gosh, I really hate that team. And then I'm like, right, I'll put them 30th. But then that means I have to put the Blues at 29. And I'm like, I can't put the Blues at 29. The minus differential is horrendous. Like,
I think for that alone, the goaltending and the defensive shellacking that the Blues have taken all season, I think you put the Blues at 30.
yeah, I
At
think
least
so
the
too.
range. I mean, at least the Rangers have. I know we don't particularly like them as a team, but at least you can look at their roster and go like, oh well, at least they've got a world class goaltender in Shesterkin. At least they've got someone like Adam Fox who is a terrific player. And obviously, I know he's had injury issues this year. Um, all right,
But
yeah,
they're retooling that. They're retooling that. Oh God, you got me back on them again.
it doesn't really go much beyond that. But you look at that Blues roster and it's just like, I mean, they're hanging their franchise on, you know, Jordan Binnington, who's just there's a word starting with a C that I would use him, but I think even though we mark the podcast as explicit, I think it'd be a bit rude to drop that in there. Um, which is really weird because you know what? He might be a really, really lovely guy. I just think he's a piece of shit. And I'm just like, it just does my fruit in. But yeah, I think I think that nobody rates Jordan Binnington higher than Jordan Binnington. Um,
Yeah,
so I just think he's an absolute crybaby cook. Um, and the sooner that he's traded to a Canadian market, the better.
the better. Okay, so we'll go with the Blues at 30 and the Rangers at 29.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that, I think, rounds out our 1 through 32 power rankings.
Yeah, I'll read through them all in one go just so you can keep track of it. So it goes
Big
Colorado,
breath.
big breath, big breath.
Brilliant. Right, go.
Colorado, the Tampa Bay Lightning, the Dallas Stars, the Carolina Hurricanes, the Minnesota Wild, the Vegas Golden Knights, the Edmonton Oilers, the Montreal Canadiens, the Detroit Red Wings, the New York Islanders, the Boston Bruins, the Pittsburgh Penguins,
Yay.
the Utah Mammoth,
Yay.
the Washington Capitals,
Yay.
the Anaheim Ducks,
Yay.
the Los Angeles Kings, the Buffalo
Yay.
Sabres, the
Fuck
San Jose
off.
Sharks,
Fuck
the
off.
Seattle Kraken, the
Fuck
Philadelphia
off.
Flyers, the Toronto Maple Leafs, the Columbus Blue Jackets, the Florida Panthers, the New Jersey Devils, the Ottawa Senators, the Nashville Predators, the Chicago Blackhawks, Winnipeg Jets, New York Rangers, St. Louis Blues, Calgary
Pricks.
Flames, and the Vancouver Canucks.
Dead.
All done.
Good work, Nathaniel.
end
That was terrific. Anything else that we need to coat off before we get out of here?
No, let's go.
As always, guys, thank you very much for joining us on our first video episode. You can catch us on social media on both X and Instagram at the PBP Podcast. You can also find us on TikTok at Nathaniel. One more time.
Penalty Box Perspective.
On TikTok. You can also get in touch with us via email at penaltyboxperspective@gmail.com if you've got any thoughts or feelings on the show, or if you want to give us any sort of feedback, constructive criticism, nice comments, anything like that. If you want to give us a 5-star review as well on either Apple Podcasts or Spotify, be sincerely appreciated. And you can also get in touch with us on YouTube. You can go and follow us there and get everything that you would find elsewhere, but on YouTube you can go subscribe and all the good stuff there as well. So thanks as always, guys, for being with us. Can't wait to get back to some coverage of the NHL, and we will see you on the next one. Take it easy.